All right, what is happening, everyone? Welcome to Ethereal's tier list. Now, a little bit about Ethereals. It is one of the strongest synergies in the game. When I started playing this game, Ethereals was the strongest, I should say, in synergy in the game, especially in the early game, because there was no Navi. Even though there was Navi, but Navi was reworked later, and they made it so powerful that now they cannot change without any backlash from the community. So Navi is definitely a very strong choice in the early game, building around Glorians. So I would say Glorians would be number one synergy in the early game. Later on, they fall off a little bit against different synergies, but nonetheless, Ethereals is a very strong synergy in the early game because the heroes that make Ethereals very good are easily obtainable in the early game. So Karnak is a very crucial hero in Ethereals. You can get it from Oracle Shop very easily. You can get Mtima, which is not very good, but in the early game it doesn't matter too much. Katrina is very good in for Ethereals, very crucial. You can get that very easily. Dorabella you can get very easily, and also people run it in three or four teams with the Atropos, so it becomes very good team. In the late game, unfortunately, that those heroes are not enough, so you will need Udora. In the late games, Ethereals is more about Udora. So if you have a bad Udora, your team would probably not even make a dent against enemy. But if you have a good Udora, it suddenly becomes a super synergy. So yeah, to begin the tier list, let's go with Eloin. Now I'm not going to speak everything about Eloin. Eloin is not a very good hero, even though she was added in the last season, season two. I have made a whole separate video of how bad she is. They didn't give us a lot of details on her abilities and the things that she can do. That's why many people got baited. She seemed good on the paper, but when you go into battle with her, she disappoints you so much. Okay, so let's begin with her active abilities. Eloin is a single target hitter. So basically, it should be good against bosses. Um, I would say she does fair amount of damage against bosses as well, but it's not too great. Just for the damage, I would say I would give her a one for the active ability. It does a good amount of damage. For the passive abilities, she had a very unique passive ability. But unfortunately, when you start using her, you will realize that this passive ability is completely useless, almost useless. So it says when Eloin is deployed, allies have a 10% chance to gain Awaken and one stacks of Sanctuary for 3 rounds after landing a critical hit. Now, just to expand a little bit what Awaken and Sanctuary is, Awaken is basically a state where your heroes become enlarged and they get like 100 or 150% boost in their attack and defense. And for Sanctuary, it is just like a blessing from Seraphina, which avoids which inhibits basically one instance of damage or debuff. So yeah, so this lasts for 3 rounds, 1 round. Now these are essentially called a buff. Awaken is not a state; it is a buff type of thing, and it easily can be debuffed if you are using certain synergies or certain if you are in a certain point in a game. So I'm not going to explain how to do it because I already made a separate video on this. But yeah, generally this looks good on the paper, but overall when you go into the battlefield, it is very bad. So for passive abilities, and again here, when Eloin is deployed, the STS gain from Awaken effect increased by 100%. So from 150 you go to 250. Again, it's very good. It's very substantial amount, but it doesn't sustain in the battle. So for passive ability, even though it looks good, it is not that good. So I would give her a zero for passive abilities. For synergy in team comps, this is all she has. Now, obviously, Ethereals being an Ethereal is good, and Royal and Celestial is good. Even though Phantom is not, she's not really popular for being a Phantom. Her abilities or her passive abilities mainly it revolves around critical hit, so which means that she needs to be used in an Ethereal lineup, which makes her which limits her potential to be used in any other in many other teams. So basically, she's only meant to be used in Ethereal. Doesn't make a lot of team comps. So overall, a zero for synergy and team composition. Versatility, I would say I would give her a zero. She's not really that great against bosses. Even though she does decent amount of damage, there are much better options to be used in Gresham or Celestial Trials. So yeah, versatility, even in PvP, she's not really that great. So versatility, I would give a zero. Progression in evolution, I would give her a one because she does have some good um, rune skills. So when Eloin is applied, Sanctuary additionally increase the target's attack by 50% or 150%. Now, if you pair that up with the Awaken, which gives you 250% attack, and this will give you, if you have the red ones, it will give you another 150. That's about 400% attack boost, just like that. Okay, it's very powerful, but it's not that great to be used in the game because you can easily debuff the Awaken and Sanctuary. For community consensus, they haven't put it in the recent version. It's not updated as I have already spoken about it in the previous tier list. But I would assume she's good enough to make above the average. So I will give a one. Overall, she gets one for active, one for progression and evolution, one for community consensus. So overall, a three. For the next one is Karnak. Now, Karnak is a very crucial hero for Ethereal. Wherever you see Ethereal, you should see Karnak as well. Um, Karnak has a good active ability, even though I think like he probably doesn't deserve a one for active abilities because it does damage, which is not a lot, but what is interesting about it is also gives you landing a critical hit, grants 100% chance to apply one stack of crit boost on all allies, which increases its potential to be used in a mixed Ethereal lineup, like a 3 Ethereals or 4 Ethereals. But yeah, so I'm gonna give it a one. I'm really around the point it's like I want to give it a zero point 0.5 because it is good and also not really that OP. But here in this tier list we can only give either a 0 or a 1. I think it is good enough to not be 0, but it's also not that broken to be a 1. So I'm going to give a 1 for this. This one is the second ability. And if you go to passive, is where Karnak shines a lot. His passive has the 100. Every time your allies does a crit hit, it is going to heal all your allies. So it is all allies, not only Karnak, which makes him a very good hero. Now, this is what gives Ethereals a very makes Ethereals very powerful in the early game, giving them a lot of sustainability. If you combine this with Katrina, they become invincible. So it is really good. And for the second passive, Karnak is deployed is going to just increase the crit boost stakes by 5. So yeah, overall, I think he has a very strong passive ability. So I give a 1 for that. For synergy and team comp, he is a protector for the rune synergy. For the other ones, is the same as Eloin, so it is good for the other ones. He is not really popular for the protector. He cannot make a lot of team comps because majority of his abilities, all of his abilities, is pretty much around crit hit, so which limits him to be used only in Ethereal. In other team modes, in other team compositions, he will not be really optimal to be used. So I would give for that a 0. For versatility, I would give a 1 because he is constantly used in an Ethereal lineup. As I said, wherever you see Ethereal, you should see Karnak there as well. It's a very core hero in the game for Ethereals. So yeah, versatility a one, and also I have made the Celestial Trials video I think where I said like how good Karna could be in there, and also in PvP he is a very crucial unit. For progression evolution, I think he has a very good rune skills. So this one is just the first part is each time Karna deals when the ally team's crit rate is higher than 200%, executes the enemy targets with less than 30% current HP. So it just has this execute, which is very cool. It counters stuff like fortitude. You can still kill an enemy even if they have fortitude, which makes it very unique. And 30% HP is the threshold, which is higher than the execute you get from the relic stars or relic synergy of Valiantis, which is maximum 20% HP. And also for the red ones, he has this ability like Victoria, which where he goes, he applies bind on two random targets for 2 rounds. And I said like bind is very good because it immobilizes the targets for 2 rounds. They cannot do basic attack. They cannot cast their ultimate or anything. So yeah, overall for progression evolution, he gets a 1. Community consensus puts her, I think, about like 8 or 9. So yeah, above average. Overall makes a 5. Karnak deserves to be there. Next up is Udora. Now Udora, I'm pretty sure if you are in the mid to late game or if you have played the game for at least about 1 or 2 months, you would know how good Udora is. Udora is a very, very powerful unit in the game. She has very strong active ability where she does like these 10 attacks against random enemy, each of them dealing 70% physical damage. And with this one, this one is normal. This one doesn't make a lot of difference, but the first one is very good because it is type of like an AOE, but also not very AOE like other characters have. It's very difficult to explain. If you probably have already seen it, she just sends these phoenixes, tens of them, which goes and hits the target. So it could be AOE, but it could also be single target if there is only one enemy on the against on your opposite side. So yeah, overall, she has this very powerful. And the cool thing about this is not if one of the phoenixes goes miss, then the other ones has a chance do not go miss. It's unlike the other heroes, where if they are a single target hitter, if the first hit goes a miss, the second one also goes a miss, or the third one goes a miss as well. But this Eudora is different. With each phoenix is a separate attack. So if one of them goes miss, the second one may not go miss. So it's different. A mix gives her, I will give a 1 for active ability. For passive ability, she has this very unique and powerful passive which allows Eudora to not this one, which allows Eudora to survive any lethal damage. So she cannot be one shot. She will always retain 1 HP and immediately recovers 50% of her max HP. So yeah, it's very strong. So it means you cannot get rid of Eudora very easily. The other one is when Eudora deals critical hit, there is 150% chance to apply the healing rupture effect on the enemy target for 1 round, which basically is a death penalty for healers. If there is any healer like Seraphina, they can heal the team, and whoever has healing rupture, they can instantly die with that heal. Healing rupture means the heals will just be as an attack. So if you get a 1000k of heal, that will be converted into attack on the enemy with the healing rupture. With the synergy in teamcom, I think she gets a 2 because she's definitely she may not be very popular with the enchanter, but it can still be used. For the other ones, she is definitely the celestial, royal, and ethereal allows her to be used in different team comps. You can use her in many other ones, especially when people start getting Eudora, they will prioritize getting her runes as well. And the runes do not have a big threshold, so you need to have a 200% crit rate or higher than that, so that Eudora can utilize her rune skills, which allows her to do her ultimate twice or one time every time she moves. So yeah, overall, I think for synergy and team comp, she get a 2. She can go into many different teams. Versatility a 1 because she is very strong and can go pretty much in any Ethereal. Very versatile hero and constantly used in many team modes like PvP, even in Celestial Trials. You can use her with Dorabella in Gresham. So yeah, a very strong hero. Even in Forgotten Lands, she is very powerful. Progression and evolution, as I already highlighted, she has one of the best rune skills in the entire game. So yeah, very very powerful. I give a 1 for progression evolution. Community consensus puts her very high, above 9. So yeah, I guess a 1 for that. Overall, she gets a 7, which is as high as it can get, and I agree. And everybody would agree that Udora is a 7 hero or the highest tier hero. Next one is Mtima. Mtima is unfortunately one of the worst roles in the game. He's a single target hitter, but for a single target hitter, he doesn't do a lot of damage. But every time he lands a critical hit, he has 100% chance to do a follow-up attack to one random enemy one time. So yeah, for a single target hitter, he doesn't do a lot of damage. You need to always pretty much pair him with Atropos to get a lot of damage, which is not really that great, being dependent on another hero. So yeah, I will give a 0 for active ability. For passive abilities, he has this crit rate increased by 2 to 20%, which is nice because it pairs up with his abilities, but it's not a game changer or anything to deserve a 1 for passive abilities. And also, with his second passive, he's going to increase the defense reduction stakes by 5, which is not really that substantial or significant. So I would give a 0 for passive abilities. Synergy in team comps. Again, he's not going to be, if he doesn't have good passive or good active abilities, he's not going to join many team comps. So overall, he gets a 0 for synergy in team comp. Versatility, again, a 0. He's not really that great to be used in anywhere. Progression and evolution, his rune skills, I believe, is just Karnak's passive skill. So one Mtima lands a critical hit, he restores the HP of all allies by 50% of the damage dealt. So yeah, pretty much like a Karnak's passive ability, which is not what you want when you already are using Karnak in team. So yeah, a 0 for progression evolution. Community consensus does surprisingly place him in the lower end of like 5-ish, like 5.5 or something, or 5.8. Can't really remember. But yeah, he makes above the average point, which is 5. So I will give a 1 for community consensus, and he overall gets a 1. Next up is Lysandra. Lysandra with her active abilities, she is pretty much like Mtima, a single target, but better. So she deals a lot more damage than Mtima. So overall, I think she's a good boss killer, even though there are much better options than her in if you go into Greshrooms. But yeah, I think she deserves a 1 for active ability. For passive ability is a bit conflicted. I'm not too sure to give her a 1 or a 0. One of her passive abilities is where she translates this increase in speed to crit damage. Now, this is increase in speed. It is not similar to runes of Astrid, where it is for every speed. Now, this is increase in speed. So, in the normal gameplays outside of season, you cannot possibly increase a hero's speed to use this passive. But in the season gameplays, you can increase the speed. So if I go onto the Ethereal seasonal synergy, if I go into the fifth one or even the fourth one, you see the speed of all allies is increased by 100. Now this, by definition, this speed of 100 should be converted into crit damage, but I'm not too sure if it works or not. I haven't looked into this and tested this or at all, but it should. Um, for the second one, she has a very cool, this unique effect of magic damage reduction for all allies by 40%. Now, Lysandra is the only hero with this passive. There's no other hero with this passive. I believe Navi has this with her runes, where she gives all allies magic damage reduction by 40%. Now, that is for runes, it's not passive. So it is much easier to get for this magic damage reduction by Lysandra than Navi. Um, there is another interesting thing about this is if you use the relic Tempest Hammer. So if we go here, I think Tempest Hammer was the one. Yeah, this one. So this hammer gives like this. If you go to a certain star level, it will increase magic damage reduction by 100%. Now, I'm not too sure if they stack because on Lysandra's skill it says it is non-stackable. So if we get the 100% from relic, then this 40% it will not be 140%. It will probably be 100%. So I'm not too sure if it is stackable or not, but it should not be stackable. So if it is not stackable, then it pretty much may be useless for this one, and the first one is almost useless in the normal gameplay. So I was like, I'm not too sure to give a one or a zero for Lysandra's passive. I think the second one is definitely good. The first one may not be so good. So a bit about zero point 0.5, but I can only give 0 or 1. So I will give a 0 for this one. I definitely don't think Lysandra deserves to be in 7 as Eudora, but you be the judge of it. You either put a 7 or a 6, but for passive abilities, I would give a 0. For synergy in teamcom, I think she doesn't have anything in her abilities which limits her to Ethereals all alone. So she can be used in many team modes, especially when she has this striker synergy. She can go into many team compositions. So overall, I think for synergy in teamcom, she can make a lot of teams. So a two. For versatility, I would give a one. She can definitely be a good choice in Gresham, in PvP if you use Ethereals, and PvE as well. Versatility one, progression evolution. She has this basically with this one. Every time Lysandra attacks a hero with the lesser speed, then she's going to apply one stack of holy shield to herself. Not too significant, I would say. At the start of the round, she applies 50% chance to apply pessimism to random enemies. Now if you go against an Ethereal versus Ethereal, if you have Lysandra with the red runes, then that red runes of pessimism could be the deciding factor in whether you win or not. Especially if it goes off on enemies Udora, then Udora would not be able to cast her ultimate, which is the most important thing about Udora. So yeah, I think progression evolution for her gets a one because it is very very important. That pessimism is very important. Community consensus puts her above average, so overall she gets a 6. Next is Porsha. Now, Porsha recently got a buff where she does twice as much damage with her active abilities than before. The question is she better than Dorabella and Katrina? And the answer, I think, is no, she's not. Even though I can see that she now does more damage, she does not have enough sustain to be able to survive the enemy's attack to cast her ultimate. So she will probably die before she even moves, and for that reason she is useless. The buff was pretty much a flop in useless. If she cannot survive, then she cannot cast her ultimate and become useless. But just for damage, I would say she deserves a 1. It does a lot of damage to the backline enemy. So active ability I would give a 1. Even her passive abilities I think is not something that I would give a 0. So she summons, and now in this season we got some different. They changed something about summons. They have added one extra spot for the summons, which means we can these passives are now more useful than before. So yeah, the first passive is now good enough, and with this one she converts 2% of healing into attack up to 40%. Not too bad, but definitely not. Yeah, it's average. I would say it's good enough to deserve a 1, but because she doesn't get a chance to cast her ultimate, she she would become very useless. So for passive, I would give a 1. It is both of her passives are good enough to deserve a 1. A summon, and here we get healing into attack conversion. For the synergy in Team Coop, even though she's a monarch, she is not really that great. She doesn't go into many teams. I've tried to make different lineups after she got a buff. I made like these 3 monarchs, 4 monarchs. Used her in Ethereals, used her in Glorians, used her in Valiantus. She doesn't survive anywhere. Even with the 4 monarch synergy, she just gets obliterated by Navi. Navi gets one proc, she's dead. So yeah, I don't think she deserves a 1 for team comp. For versatility, again, a 0. I don't think she's better than Dorabella or Katrina. Um, and that's why she doesn't get used so much anywhere. So 0, progression and evolution. She actually has good runes where she increases her crit damage up to 90% or up to 300% for every debuff the target has. So, which is not too bad, 300% crit damage is definitely quite a significant amount. So, a 1 for that. Community consensus puts her above around the average side. So, I will give a 1 for community consensus as well, and she gets an overall of 4. Next is Katrina. Now, Katrina is a very good non-royal hero, very easy to get as well. The bad thing about her is her speed, which is 95. If you get a chance to have her skin, get it because it will give you 5 extra speed, which makes it 100. And not too good, but still is something good. With her active, she deals a lot of damage. Probably will nuke the entire enemy lineup if they're not protected by holy shields or if it doesn't go miss. Well, with the active second active ability, also decent amount of damage, not too bad. So for the active ability, I would say she gets a 1. For passive ability, she gets this. The first one is not too great. It just increases the defense reduction stats by 5. But for the second one is where she shines. She for every critical hit, she's going to apply a shield effect on all allies, 50% of her own attack to all allies for 2 rounds. It gives them a lot of sustain, but also limits her to be used in Ethereal alone because it is entirely dependent on crit hit. If you do not have enough crit rate, then it's going to be useless. But still, for passive ability, I think she deserves a 1. For synergy in team comp, she is unfortunately a protector, which means she wouldn't be used for rune synergies, but also because her abilities are very much dependent on crit rate and crit hit, so she is pretty much limited to be used only in Ethereals. For synergy in team comp, she gets a 0. For versatility, I would say she gets a 1 because she's used from early to mid game to late game in any Ethereal lineup. She's a very, very good hero. For progression and evolution, she has I think she has a very good rune skills. The first one is may not be so significant. The second one is where she shines because she increases the shield effect of the ally time by 50%. So now she is basically going to apply a shield equal to 100% of her attack. So for a 1 for that, for community consensus, she definitely gets above average. So overall makes a 5 over here beside. Next we go with Dorabella. Dorabella is a very good hero in my opinion, even though she is not as good as many other heroes, but she is very crucial, I would say, in an Ethereal lineup for her abilities. So has 100 speed, not that high, but is still good enough. For her active abilities, she does decent amount of AoE damage, not as much as Katrina, but it's still very good. So it's magic damage, and with her second active, also she does decent amount of damage. So I would give like a 1 for that for active abilities. For the passive ability, she still gets a 1. Now her passive is, even though she has one passive, it's a very very good and strong passive, especially if you pair it with Udora, which you will eventually get Udora in the late game. Now it is when Dorabella is deployed, she has a 25% chance to start a sync attack after an ally lands a critical hit. So this passive becomes very very significantly powerful when you start using Katrina, Dorabella, Eudora, I mean. My words are jumbling up, but yeah, for if you don't have Eudora in your lineup, this might not have a very big impact. But if you have Eudora where she deals like this 10 Phoenix attack on the enemy, and if all of them hits a crit, becomes a crit hit, then she has a 25% chance on each of them to follow up a sync attack. So which means that you can easily get rid of like 1 or 2 enemies very early in the round. especially if your Udora becomes very strong. Udora can get rid of like one or two enemies, and then Dorabella gets the third one. So enemy would have only two more enemies to get rid of. So it becomes very, very good synergistic, strong force in the Ethereal lineup. So yeah, for this one, I give her passive ability a one. For synergy in team comps, unfortunately, because her passive ability especially is dependent on the crit hit, she doesn't join many team comps. So yeah, for that reason, even though she's a monarch, she gets a zero. Her passive ability becomes useless anywhere outside of Ethereal. For versatility, I would give her a one. She is, if you saw my Gresh Room video, I think the first one, where I say like Dorabella is one of the best hero for Gresham. That still applies if you do not have Astrid. But now there's definitely Astrid, so that Astrid is a better option. For versatility, I would still give her a one. She's definitely used in many Ethereal lineup. You can use in PvP, you can use in Celestial Trials, you can use in Gresh Rooms, you can use in Forgotten Lands. So yeah, versatility, a one. Progression evolution, she has one of the best rune skills. She does every time she hits the enemy, she is going to take away. The target loses an additional 1% of their max HP up to on attack 10 attack times 10. So that 1%, if it is a boss, then that 1% of their max HP is going to be very significant amount of damage. So progression evolution a one. Community consensus also puts her above average, so a one. Overall, she gets a five. Besides Katrina, Karnak, and all of them. Next one is going to be Ellie. Now Ellie is not a very good heroine. Um, for active abilities, she deals a decent amount of damage. Her speed is very low, but the damage is, yeah, just for the damage, I think I should give her a one because the damage is an AoE, and for an AoE, she does quite a significant amount of damage. I'll give a one for active ability. For passive ability, though, she doesn't have very good passives. It just says this one is just every time when she dies, is she's going to do like this revenge against all enemy units, deals a very small amount of damage to them. With the second one, when Ellie attacks, every debuff or control effect on target increases her ignore defense. So just ignores the defense of the target by a little bit. Not too significant, not too game changing. So I would give a zero for passive abilities. Synergy in Team Comps, even though she is a striker, because of her abilities, is not really that good. She doesn't join many team comps. So we guess a zero for synergy in team composition. Versatility, she doesn't get used very often or consistently in many game modes. She doesn't even join an Ethereal lineup in a PvP, which should be the baseline. But yeah, she doesn't make it. So versatility, I'll give a zero. Progression and evolution doesn't have very good rune skill. It's just when Ellie's defense is increased, there is a 10% chance to gain an additional 30% of own defense for 3 rounds. Defense is not a big deciding factor in this game, especially when many heroes are being added in the game with very high amounts of attack and damage. So this defense would make a very small change in the game, not too substantial. So that's why I give a zero for that. Community consensus puts her barely above average, so I'll give a one for that. And for active and overall, she gets a two, so I'll put a two in her. Um, so for the last one is Anubia, and now Anubia is the worst character in the Ethereals lineup. She does some damage, not too significant. Yeah, it's not as much, even though it's just 375% magic damage to all enemies, similar to Ellie. But Ellie, I guess, like this 10% increase in the damage for every debuff the enemy has. So Ellie is definitely a better choice for the active. That's why she gets a zero for active ability. For passive abilities, she doesn't have good passive. When Anubia is deployed, the ally team increase crit rate by 10%. Now, 10% crit rate is almost nothing, and crit damage by 10% is again almost nothing. And she doesn't have another passive. So she gets a zero for passive abilities. Synergy in team comps. She doesn't have good synergies. She doesn't have good abilities to go into any teams. So again, a zero. Versatility. Again, like Ellie, she doesn't even join an Ethereal lineup in PvP. So a 0 for versatility, progression, and evolution. She has like she was bugged and she was being exploited for her rune skill in the celestial tries, where everybody was reaching like this last stage of celestial tries, but it was fixed. But still, her passive ability, I think, her rune skill, I think, is still good to get a one. So this is to apply 50% chance to apply illusion on one target or on two targets for 2 rounds. So I think I would give a one. Illusion is definitely not the worst thing. I don't think I'm probably like around zero point 0.5, but I still give her a 1. Don't want to put her a 0 for that. Community consensus puts her like barely above average, so a 1 for that. She gets a 2 like Ellie and put her here. Now, again, I would say again and again to always take these rankings or tier list as a plus minus one. So in majority of them, I don't think, like for example, Porsha, I don't think Porsha is better than Eloin, and I don't think Karnak is a 5. Karnak is probably like a 6. Yeah, Dorabella definitely a 5. Katrina definitely around 5 or 6. Udora should be in 7 as it is. These two heroes, I don't think they are better than Mtima. So realistically, they probably would be one with Mtima or Mtima in two and these two in one. But yeah, is there are many things that there's my tier list are not getting into consideration, but still, it is something to work with. Hopefully, you like this one. In the next one, I'm going to rank the Glorians one. Even though I do not have some of these heroes, I would have to discuss it with some other members of the community to see where they rank them. And until then, take care.